even after injury. Then we come to the optic nerve. Optic nerve is the one that is responsible for the vision. In this particular lecture, I would not be going into much detail of the visual pathways. These were the slides that I discussed the visual pathways. If you can see the description of the link below, there is the link of the visual pathways and reflexes. We have discussed it in detail. So for now I'm skipping it. You can go back and go through the link and the video in which we discuss the visual pathway, what is the difference between the field of vision, the retinal fibers, how the retina is formed, the two areas, the optic nerve, which fibers do cross in the optic chiasm, how the optic tract is formed, then the geniculate body, then the radiations, then the optic cortex, visual cortex, and then I have discussed all of these lesions that are seen in this. I have discussed in detail. For this, you can go to the lecture that is mentioned in the description of this link. Let us have a little discussion here of the light reflexes. Pupillary light reflex. What happens in the pupillary light reflex? That you shine the light or you shine a light in the eye, the impulses, the detected light, it goes to the brainstem through the optic nerve. And as we had discussed in this, you can see there are fibers that are exiting the optic tract before going into the lateral geniculate body and going into the this uh, midbrain. So these are the fibers that are going to the pretectal nucleus or pretectal area, as it is not very clearly defined. From here, the important thing to remember is that the fibers, they go to the parasympathetic nuclei of the both side. The parasympathetic nuclei is called Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Edinger-Westphal nucleus. And from that, this is the preganglionic fiber. And from there, it goes, and here it synapses in the postganglionic cell bodies that are the ciliary ganglions, and from there it goes to the pupillary sphincters. The constriction of the pupil of the eye in which the light was shown, that is called direct light reflex, and the constriction of the pupil which was not exposed to light, that also constrict, that is called consensual light reflex. So that is about the light reflex. All of the notes, this is from the picture from the Kaplan's neuroanatomy. All of these notes can be seen here. All of the same things are mentioned here. Let us talk about the accommodation-convergent reflex. This is the reflex that is encountered when you focus on a near object. If you're looking at this video in your mobile phone, on the tablet, laptop screens, you are activating your accommodation convergent reflex. Three things happen at the same time. Your lens changes its shape to focus the near object. Your two eyes, they move towards the midline to focus on the same item, that is convergence. And the pupils, they constrict to a smaller diameter so that to allow the light to pass from only the central part of the lens, that is pupillary constriction. What is the mechanism through that? Whenever you are focusing on a near object, let's say you are looking at a book, you are looking at a book here, and when you're looking at the book, the image goes through all the normal pathways. It goes through the retina, to the optic nerve, chiasm, tract, geniculate body, radiation, and it reaches visual cortex. And here in the visual cortex, it found out the image is blurry. We have to focus. So what does the visual cortex do? It sends the signal to another area. That area is called frontal eye field. It sends the signal to frontal eye field. It asks the frontal eye field to activate accommodation. What does frontal eye field do? It sends signals down. It sends signals down and it activates the nuclei that are responsible for these functions. It sends signal down to the parasympathetic nucleus, and to the main motor nucleus. So these are the functions of the frontal eye field. A very important thing to see here is that this pretectal nucleus, it has been bypassed. The signal sent by the frontal eye field does not pass through the pretectal nucleus. It goes directly to the oculomotor nerve nucleus and the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So that's the thing to remember, and this becomes important when we are talking about the lesions. So if in a disease of in a lesion in a stroke, there is a defect in the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, parasympathetic nucleus. Let's talk about an injury of the same side. Then the outflow will not go to that eye, no matter the input signal. Whether this output is in response to the pupillary light reflex in the or it is in response to the accommodation reflex, output will not be generated from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. There will be loss of both the light and accommodation in that particular eye. So here if the light is shown, and this particular eye will not contract. Even the light is shown here, this eye will not contract. However, the sensory component will work in fine and consensual reflex will be okay. However, the other situation would be different. If there is a loss of the pretectal nucleus, then the visual, the light reflex will be affected because the signal coming from retina, optic nerve, chiasm, tract has to go through the pretectal nucleus. It will be blocked here. The light reflex will not be working fine. However, the accommodation reflex was working fine because it bypassed the pretectal nucleus. So accommodation will be intact, but pupillary light reflex will be lost. So that's what happened in the Argyll Robertson pupil. In the it is the includes the lesion near the pretectal nucleus, and then the light reflexes are lost, but accommodation convergence it remains intact. Then there are other some reflexes. There is a corneal reflex. Corneal reflex is the one when something touches your cornea, you blink immediately. It may be a wisp of cotton, a drop of rain, a grain of sand, anything, a puff of air. Anything that touches and irritates cornea leads to blinking of the eye. So like all the reflexes, it will have its afferent and efferent limbs. The afferent limb will be nasociliary branch of the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve. We will discuss this in the trigeminal nerve when we do that. And trigeminal nerve, it brings it to the brainstem. Here the relay occur through medial longitudinal fasciculus, and then the signal through the facial nerve. It goes and it constricts the orbicularis oculi muscle and eye blink. Then there is visual body reflexes. The reflexes that are generated in response to an immediate visual stimulus. For example, if a bright light is shown in your eye, you blink your eye. If the bright light is shown in your eye, you put your hand up. So these are visual body reflexes. A bright light is shown on one side, you look towards that side. These are visual body reflexes. So you should remember the parts that are responsible for that. The signal goes through the same pathway all the way to the optic nerve chiasm tract, and they go directly to the brainstem. Here, the part of the brainstem that is responsible for these is superior colliculus. Superior colliculus. And from that superior colliculus, this part of the midbrain, it's called tectum of the midbrain. And from that, the descending fibers they go to the spinal cord, they go to the brainstem. So the brainstem nuclei, those will be called tectobulbar fibers, and the fibers that are going to the spinal cord, that will be called tectospinal fibers. So that is about the visual body reflexes. So that was all about optic nerve. I have skipped the visual pathway, and I will repeat that that is included in the description of this particular video. Let us move on to the next one. The next one is